Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 12 of the Welder's Wet Dream podcast. As I start every episode, I will not kill myself, I will never kill myself, and if I'm found dead in a way that looks like I have killed myself, it was the government. I am recording this podcast on Valentine's Day alone in my basement. Not thrilled about that. I did not see myself being here at this age by myself. I think that I'd be married by now, but it is what it is. Haven't gone on a date recently. Haven't kissed a girl recently. Haven't had intercourse recently. I do believe that it has made my mind sharper and my ability to focus on these topics a lot easier. So, if there's anything positive that. Yeah. All right. So, now that we've gone over that, you know what? Screw it. I was going to do this episode on the Panama Canal, Greenland, and Canada, but I'm in a Valentine's mood, so I'm going to throw the notes to the side. I'm going to go off the cuff, okay? So something that's been happening recently is a lot of lawsuits against Pornhub. Now, Pornhub, for those who don't know, from what I've heard, is a site where you can watch dirty videos and adult content. But a big factor of this site is that it has a community aspect of it where people can post on their own, almost as a YouTube such thing. And that opens up the door to lots of problems, right? So, one, if someone is posting a video, they don't check the age on the video. They ask you if you're above 18, so I've heard, and they don't actually have any way to confirm that you're telling the truth. Now, that is obviously a big issue when it comes to the CP that could possibly be on there. Not only is CP illegal and disgusting, but also the minds of a girl that young can't make the proper decision to show themselves. So there usually would be a bad actor in that situation who could potentially profit off of this CP. CP is child porn. So they could potentially profit off of a minor and a unknowing child. And the sickos who were watching that type of stuff. Not only that, but that alone is a huge problem. Then you have people in, I don't want to say consensual, but consensual abusive relationships who a man may be using a woman, or a woman using a man, or a man using a man, or a woman using a woman to profit off of showing them having intercourse to other people. and that's not good. You don't want someone to be exposed to that. Also, a big feature of Pornhub, which makes it so dangerous, is they have a download button on all their videos, right? So if there's a video out there of CP or of domestic violence, even if you complain and get them to take down your video, the video that you're in that you don't want to be up, it could be downloaded and reposted, and it is it just causes a never-ending problem of the video being posted and posted over again. And now when we get if those, and I'm not saying any of those are worse or better than the others, but to get into the real dark side, there can be rapes, and there can be sex trafficking, and even stuff of incest. And it, with these community upload feature, it really opens the gateway for a lot of abuse and taking advantage of the system. Also, a common thing that happens, and probably comes down to the most common thing that we're seeing on websites like Pornhub, and it's not just Pornhub. There's tons of other, any one of those adult sites that you go onto and you can upload a video. You'll see a lot of I forgot what it's called. It's like if you break up with someone, sending their pictures, or they're posting their, I think it's like sex revenge or something, whatever, right? To posting their pictures and their videos online, right, as a form of revenge. And that's a tough one. It's a tough one to notice too, because at the time the person might have consensually taken these photos and I performed any action that they did in the video, but it wasn't consented to put up. So that's an issue. We don't want that. So I showed you the reason, right? Why not to use a site like this, right? A community site. And unfortunately for some people, this also includes, what I would say is under this umbrella is OnlyFans. Any single site where a community can post, I think it's possible that something like this could happen, right? And we don't want any of this stuff happening. So what I would recommend everybody does, one, it's not a matter of not clicking on those videos, right? Because if you're using the site, all it's doing is making these people who allow this to happen profit more, and we don't want that, all right? So if you are going to indulge in stuff like these adult videos, what I ask you to do, and what you should do, is only, first of all, you have to pay for it. There's no such thing as free anything, right? Especially free porn. So if it's free, it's probably no good. So you should pay for it, and you should only watch highly produced studio and if you're going to indulge in something like this, you should really make sure it's as ethical as possible, right? You want the girls who are in the videos, girls, guys, whatever you're into, trans, to want to be there, right? You don't want them to be forced to be there. You want them to be paid a fair wage, right? Just think about it as this. If you would to do drugs, right? Most smart drug users do a little bit of due diligence and making sure they're getting good stuff and not stuff that's laced with fentanyl or anything, right? In this instant, you don't want to watch videos that are laced with sex trafficking or rape or child porn or anything like this. So, as a man who has sisters and who cares, all I ask you guys to do, you can't support websites that have communities that can post on it because it just opens up a gateway for criminals. That was a depressing topic. I understand that. But as a provider of information, I truly thought that I needed to say it, and I hope that you think about who's in the videos before you think about yourself, right? That's just me trying to do my part. Anyways, so today at work, we have this mega liberal that I like to fight with. And I don't consider myself a conservative, but somehow he called me a Nazi, a typical liberal move. And this all came about because he was talking about getting rid of Confederate soldier statues, right? And the problem I have with this, there's a lot of problems I have with this. One, if this alone, these were people's grandfathers, these were people's great-grandfathers, they were relatives, they were uncles, they were fathers, they were sons. They are a part of American history, whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, right? They were a part of American history, and with any country, if you delete the history will repeat itself, right? Germany has actually done a great job of this, where they teach so much about the Holocaust and about Hitler and the Nazi Party, right? Why do they do this? Not because they thought it was a good idea, not because they want it to happen again. It's actually because they don't want it to happen again. They want that to be never forgotten about, and they don't ignore the fact that it happened. They teach the fact that it happened and why it happened and why it was wrong, right? And it's prevented them from doing anything close. And Germany's a great country and have been still building back since World War II and getting better. And they've realized their mistakes. They can't go back in time and redo their mistakes. But if they can teach the history of their mistakes, they can learn to never do them again and never forget about what they've done in the past, right? First of all, the Confederate Army, right? What a lot of people, liberal people, think when they think Confederate, they think racist, right? And listen, were they racist? Yes, 100%. They were racist, right? But at the same time, that wasn't all what the Confederate Party represented, right? It represented states' rights, the working man, the farming industry, right? It represented a lot more than just slavery and the hatred of black people, right? And in my opinion, the way you have to look at it is, at that time, slavery was all these people known. Their business was based off of slavery, right? Their livelihood was based off of slavery. It was the only thing they knew. And all they know is there was a person coming into office that was trying to take them of their livelihood, right? This is not me condoning slavery, right? Slavery was wrong. And as of same as the Holocaust, Americans, we look back and we're embarrassed by it, and we don't want anything like that to ever happen again. And it's taught in schools for us to learn about our mistakes, right? That was history. The second you get rid of those statues, right, we're deleting history and we're forgetting, right? And, I like to think if a family visits South Carolina and they see a statue of Robert E. Lee and the kid asks their parents, who's that? And then that gives their dad a chance to educate who that is, right? So if we get rid of that, moments like that won't happen. Eventually, schools will stop teaching it, right? And those horrible things that America did in the past will be forgotten. Same way as if, I don't know where I was going there. But anyways, also, it gets to a point where as soon as you take down one statue, right? Unfortunately, most of our leaders and people that they're statues of did something wrong, right? George Washington had slaves. Does that mean that everything he did should be discredited? No, right? Like I said, that was what was the norm at the time. And people didn't even think it was bad. Even though it was, I'm not saying it's not. Like I said, I'm not condoning slavery, but I'm saying that at that time, the people thought there was nothing wrong with it, right? Doesn't mean there wasn't, but people thought that. So if you get down that Robert E. Lee statue, you're going to take down that George Washington statue, right? I don't think so. That's the thing, And then it comes to next thing, let's get rid of slavery, right? In my mind, we talked about in the last the last podcast, Lyndon B. Johnson, right? Lyndon B. Johnson was pretty much directly responsible for the death of 200,000 American men in Vietnam, right? Over the Gulf of Tonkin incident and lying about what actually happened. Do you take down all the statues of Lyndon B. Johnson? Do you rename all the schools named after Lyndon B. Johnson? No, you don't, right? Or another thing I talked about last podcast, Operation Paperclip, where U.S. presidents brought in Nazi scientists to work on spaceships during the space race and didn't charge them with war crimes. Again, to work with Nazis and not put these people away who tested Jewish people like they were animals, you could consider that a crime. Now we're talking about guys like Eisenhower, JFK, Hoover, a lot of guys like this who were considered FDR, right? A lot of guys we consider great presidents, but they have flaws. Do you get rid of statues of George Bush because he started the war on terror? And, do you get rid of another war, a pointless war where we lost American citizens for no reason and gained no ground? Do you get rid of statues of Barack Obama because of how many people he deported and how many citizens he killed in opposing countries with airstrikes that were meant to target one person but killed thousands, right? It gets to a point where all of a sudden you're trying to delete all of American history. And let's talk about even some of the greatest American people of history. Martin Luther King. He cheated on his wife. Is that a reason to get rid of his statues? I say no. But it gets to be a point where you get rid of the one, and then you start finding bad things about everything, and all of a sudden, there's no statues. There's no remembrance of time. There's no, are we going to get rid of the Constitution because people who signed the Constitution had slaves, or the Declaration of Independence? It gets to a point where you can't delete history, right? History is what it is. It's history. It's in the past, and it's there for us to learn and to remember about. This is a very preachy episode, and I'm very sorry. There's not a lot of comical to this, but these were a lot of things that I wanted to get off my chest, right? So we got Pornhub statues. This is a good one. I guess we could go into Panama Canal because I did a lot of research on that. So Trump wants to take back the Panama Canal, and it's unfortunate that he said this along with the Gulf of America and taking Canada and taking Greenland, because taking back the Panama Canal actually makes a lot of sense. I have recently found out that a lot of people don't actually know our involvement in the Panama Canal and the history behind it. So I think we dive into that real quick. Right? The Panama Canal was built, I think it was right after World War II. And the way it went about was we went to Colombia and we said to the Colombian people that we want to build a canal for trade routes. We'll pay for it. We'll build it. We'll maintain it. We'll run it. And we just need your access to your land because it was the thinnest part and it made the most sense to go through there. All right. Colombia wanted nothing to do with us. Right. And here we pulled a move that America loves to pull. And instead of just saying, all right, and moving on, we started talking to the northern Colombians who were all for this, right? So we convinced the northern Colombians to start a civil war with the southern Colombians, and we funded that war. So what we did was eventually got the northern Colombians to win by funding them and training them, and they succeeded and made their own country and called it Panama. Right? So America was directly related to the creation of Panama. As soon as the northern Colombians won and renamed it Panama, America went in and said, we'll build the Panama Canal, we'll pay for it, you'll profit from it, and we'll even do all the infrastructure around it, such as hospitals, schools, transportation, whatever, right? So we're literally promised them we're taking you from a third world country and we're turning you into a prosperous country, right? Which we did. Panama is a very successful country. Anyways, so the first couple years of the Panama Canal went great, right? America was making more money. We were making money off of every import and export that went through the Panama Canal, and we had preference to go through it first, and it was working out real well. But during the Cold War, the Soviet Union didn't like that we controlled the Panama Canal, so they had talks of building their own canal. America didn't like this because they didn't want Russia to have their own canal and their own access points. So what we did instead was we sold the Panama Canal to Panama so that they were partial owners of it. We were still profiting from it, but they were running it and they controlled who went in and who went out, right? Soviet Union thought that was acceptable, and they continued to put their ships through there. Right? So that was great up until JFK came along and gave the Panama Canal fully back to the Panamanian people, as JFK did, trying to, he was a very generous guy and cared about people a lot. So he thought, let them prosper from this. And, we thought that they would pay us back the favor for helping them. So, unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Soon after Panama owned the Panama Canal, they struck a deal with China. And this was like the 90s, really. So it wasn't soon after. It was actually quite a bit after. But they struck a deal with China, and China now was doing the role of America after we had gave it to them the first time. So they're running it, they're profiting from it, right? And the big thing here is they get priority over everybody else. And when it comes to the boating profit margins, it's all about how fast you can be there. And if they can get through the Panama Canal fast, which is the longest process of the whole trade route, they can make a whole lot more money, right? So, and then we start to see little things like the northern Panama states that they recognize Thailand as China, and we're starting to see a lot of China Communist Party's ideas in Panama, right? And Trump knows that China, they're trying to take over the world pretty much, and the Panama Canal is a key to the world. Really, when it comes to trade routes, it is so important. If they take over that and they don't let Americans in, that's going to cost us millions, and it's gonna really cause a lot of problems. So Trump is not saying that he's going to call it the American Canal or anything. He just wants to take over running it the way that we did it, right? Before China got involved, which makes sense because we paid for it, we built it, we created Panama, and now China's benefiting from that. Doesn't make sense. So when Trump says so Trump has pretty much threatened them, where he said, if you don't give it back to us, we're going to send in military action. It's kind of a bullshit claim. We're not going to send in military actions to Panama. We would destroy them in minutes. It's just kind of a threat. And Panama knows they're going to say yes to us. We're closer to them than China is to them. They have to worry about us more than they have to worry about China. So we will probably gain the Panama Canal. This was a terrible episode. I'm sorry, guys. This was not funny. This was not joyful. This was probably a little too serious. I just had a lot of stuff that I wanted to talk about, and unfortunately, with some of these topics, you can't make them funny. You got to stay serious. You got to show the importance of it, and I hope I did these topics a little bit of justice. As an American, I look at these things right now, and we have a lot of problems with America. And if I can spread the word on how to solve some of these problems a little bit, how we don't forget our history, we value our women, and we respect our women, and and we don't let anybody be the bully of us. I think it's a very important thing. I can't stress it enough. And like I said again, I apologize. It wasn't a super funny podcast. It wasn't joyful. It wasn't the usual tone of things. But I do think it was very important to talk about this type of stuff and to bring attention to it. And as I start and end every podcast, I will not kill myself. I will never kill myself. And if I'm found dead in a way that looks like I have killed myself, it was the government. Thank you and goodbye.